Hi, and welcome to Gun Racing Line, the Formula One podcast by fans, for fans. Finally, Formula One is back after what seemed like forever as a hiatus. It was the spring break. For us, it was an autumn break. It was far too long. It wasn't designed to be that way. But let's not do that again, Formula One, because we're going to do another one in August, and we're not really looking forward to that one either. We were back in Baku. The place of... Well, it's a city of drama. It's a city of all sorts of bits and pieces going on. And this time round, we saw some action in qualifying and practice. And then when it came to race time, all that action just disappeared. Tristan, welcome. What would you give the Baku race this weekend?
Oh, geez, I'm going to be harsh. I've thought about this for a few days now.
What's your number?
4.
Whoa.
I thought it was hideous.
Whoa.
Hideous.
That is a low score.
The worst. It will be. Geez, we're not going to France, are we? It'll be the worst race of the season.
Yeah,
it was hands down an absolute shocker. You know, I was very critical of Baku when it first started, but have been up and about over the last few years. But we were back to season 1 of Baku, weren't we?
Yeah.
It was a procession of nothing. Thank God Ocon nearly killed half the Formula One paddock's photographers, because it was the only part of the sort of excitement that we got for Sunday in particular. So, anyway.
I was particularly enjoying the fact that we had Perez racing as well as he did.
Yeah, I thought that was good too.
I did enjoy that part of it. Maybe it was the fact that we didn't get Formula One for a little while.
I think I'm a bit downbeat on that too. I had to wait 3 full weeks for then the most garbage race of the season.
Well, and then we actually got a race in a nice time zone.
I know, it was great. It was 9 o'clock. I got to watch all the pre-show. Anyway, I'm not happy. My footy team won beforehand too, so I should be up and about. But I'm not. I'm flat. I'm annoyed.
Tristan's sticking footy team keeps on coming back from the dead in all these games. It does me head in. I hate him. Look, and the fact that Formula One's back... I'm willing to give it a 6.
A 6?
Yeah. It wasn't the best race, but I still enjoyed watching it. If I had known it would have been that race, I still would have watched it.
I enjoyed the weekend as a whole. As a package,
Interesting.
I enjoyed it. But
Interesting
Sunday,
you say that.
Sunday was rubbish.
We're going to unpack that in a minute.
Oh, very good.
We've got all the goodies.
We do.
But there's a delay.
There is a slight delay.
There's a little delay in the big package coming. The big package is obviously F1.5. Everyone's been looking for it. Everyone's been looking forward to it. But with the fact that there's so many upgrades still coming, we've decided to hold it off a week.
Good.
Which I think it's the
right thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So we're holding it off a week because there are some more upgrades coming, and we just want to get a little bit of an understanding of where some of these teams are at. So yeah, it is hold on there. It is coming. I know we promised a show to bring it on, but as we were doing a little bit of reading, we sort of noticed how many. Well, we knew there were so many so many updates coming next race.
Yes.
But yeah, we wanted to see what happened at this one before we made the big call. So. It is on its way, but you're going to have to hold on another week. But we have all the other goodies, including our opening question. And our opening question this week comes from Toto Wolff. Our man Toto. Yeah, so we've Sam and Paige just letting you know that Toto's now entered the opening question realm.
Yeah, this is news to me.
And he's called for analysts into why boring races occur.
Okay.
And it's probably to do with the team dominating for 7 years in the sport.
It could very well be.
It's interesting that he's now got an interest in boring races now that he's not winning those boring races. But yeah, so he's called for a bit of an analyst. What would you do?
Yep.
What would you do in a race like what we saw in Baku?
Yep.
If you knew you were going to get a few Bakus, what would you do to spice up the race? What's the number one thing you would do?
Geez, to spice up the race in Baku.
No, well,
if we knew we were going to
not necessarily Baku. I want just if you know that you're going to get some more boring races. So we're in a situation where there's a very dominant team at the moment. Perez and Verstappen are going to be winning unless something major changes soon in terms of upgrades, which I'm not convinced that's not going to happen. But if we don't see that happen, what's something that you would do to spice up races in the future if you knew you were going to get a season like this?
I think if I had the knowledge, I would look to. I'd look to make some adjustments to the calendar, and whether or not just be a month here or there, and just try and not schedule races in summer and nice weather. So try and find a window where we can have some winter racing. Does that make sense? That's probably the only thing.
You really annoy me with that answer because that's my exact answer I wanted to give. This is something I used to harp on a little bit. Like, we need to make life hard for our Formula One teams. Yeah. And so let's go and race in all conditions. Let's go and design these cars that can race in wet conditions.
Yep.
And let's design the cars to race in really cold conditions where those tyres do turn off.
Yes.
And let's go and do those sorts of things. Make it really difficult for Formula 1 teams. So, yeah, no, I'm with you. And that was not orchestrated that we ended up with the same answer.
No, that's very true.
Yeah. It's better than watering the track like Bernie Eccleston instead.
Silly.
It's better than that because it's a little bit more natural. You might get it, but yeah, it's certainly something. After Australia was the last race, unbelievable.
I know.
Unbelievable. It was the last race all that time ago. Yeah, since then we've seen Sainz have his appeal declined.
Yep, which is totally fair enough.
Yep, I don't know that either of us necessarily completely agreed with the Sainz penalty and how harsh it was. Maybe you were a little bit more okay with it.
I was a little bit more okay
I sort of
with
thought if they let other things go, they can let him go.
Yep.
And they had the means to do that, but there was no grounds for him to lodge that appeal. There's no new evidence that had arisen.
Yeah.
And so it was thrown out before it even became an appeal. So, yeah, it was that one was gone. And then outside of that, there was lots of team movements going on.
There was lots of team movements going on.
Probably the major one that got all tongues wagging was the the Mercedes restructure.
Yep.
And that was simply moving people around. So the guy that wasn't doing all the greatest of job in the technical director role moved.
Yep.
And then they moved James Ellison back into that role.
Yep. Which I liked that.
It made plenty of sense. It's what Ferrari should have done with Binotto.
Yes.
So the gist of how it all worked is that they felt like people weren't really in the best role for them. And so they made the changes. This was screamed out Binotto. He was a fantastic technical director. They needed to put him back into a role or a similar role and bring in somebody to support him. And the perfect person would have been Vasseur, which is what they've ended up with. But so I think they've made a really great call there, not losing great people because they wanted to restructure.
Yep.
And so, that was probably one of the major things. Any other major news happening that you want to bring up before we get into more recent news?
Lauren Meeks, from Ferrari, is obviously replacing Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sorry, not Fred.
Vasseur?
No, not Fred. This is how many weeks off we've had. Who's AlphaTauri's boss?
Oh, sorry. Franz Tost.
Franz Tost. My goodness me.
Right.
We've had 3 weeks off and I've totally forgotten what's going on the whole way.
In actual fact, I've missed that.
Yeah, so Franz is out, and I think probably he's had enough. He was very, very critical of...
Hang on, has he finished?
He's finished, so he's finishing up.
Geez, this is news to me because
really?
I thought it was a couple of weeks down the track. Yes, I knew that he had announced.
He's in the process of finishing up. Right, so he hasn't fully finished.
No, right, okay.
Jeez, you can tell we're rusty having weeks off, aren't we?
Well, you're telling me fake news.
Anyway, so he will eventually finish up. Slash pretty much has finished up.
Yep.
And he was super critical of the team a few weeks ago, actually, and of his technical engineers and all the departments and all that kind of stuff. And it was sort of, it just was a man who goes, you know what, that's it. I'm finished. Yep. So that's fine. Not sure how Lauren Meeks is going to go. Don't really have a huge background on him and what he does and where he's come from, but you would assume that if he's been touted by them, it's obviously the right move.
Yeah, it's a tricky job, that one.
It is.
Franz Tost very rarely got in the news, and that's why it was even more unusual that he got into the news for this one.
Yeah.
Because they're a team that have high aspirations. They're a team that are always considered in danger of being cut off from the Red Bull family.
Yeah.
But never have been.
But it's funny you say that. I kind of had that feeling over the last couple of weeks since those comments that, I actually think AlphaTauri's time on the grid is kind of limited. I think with new people coming in.
Yeah, possibly.
And do Red Bull even need him anymore?
Well, and that's the big call is
I actually don't know if
that
they do.
The new managing director of all Red Bull sports and that sort of stuff isn't necessarily all for the two Formula 1 teams.
So, I don't know, just maybe a ridiculously early prediction. I actually think their time on the grid is limited, and if you're looking at someone like Andretti to come in and buy some stuff,
which is a little bit of news on it,
and some equipment, then why not go and grab that team? Anyway, that's just us.
Yeah,
a little bit excited.
They're in an interesting spot, and what I'm getting back to is it's a really tricky job to go and pick up because it's not like anyone ever thinks that they're going to go and win a world championship or even win a race. I mean, they're a long way off being competitive in that realm, and they seem a long way off being competitive in that realm again anytime soon.
Yep.
And so, how do you manage a team that is always in the shadow of Red Bull, always expected that you never know, they might disappear, and so it is. Yeah, it's a really tricky team to sort of garner and build momentum with when you're sort of not ever really in the spotlight properly. So, yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how he goes there, because I thought Francis Tost actually did a good job of just holding it, and that was about what he did. And tell me about the race. So the other big news that happened throughout the break from Australia into Baku was the change in the format of the race weekend, where we saw a practice session, just a single practice session in the race weekend.
Sure.
Then we saw qualifying for the Sunday race, a standard qualifying format.
Yep. On Friday, that was on Friday,
but it was moved to a Friday afternoon.
Let's get stuck into this.
Then what they did is they had a standalone day on the Saturday where they had a shortened qualifying session, which they called the Sprint Shootout, which I quite like that name.
Very exciting. Great name.
Good name, yeah.
Probably.
And then they had the Sprint.
Yep.
And then that was standalone. There was points involved up to 8th place, even though the Formula One world broadcaster couldn't actually nail that with the points predictions on the screen during the race.
Yeah.
And then on the Sunday we had a standard race. How did you like that race weekend format? You're not the biggest fan of sprint races.
Not a huge fan.
That you know of,
yes,
but unfortunately you forget that you do quite like them.
I don't know about do like.
Which is a bit of a shame, because you forget. Quite often you'll watch a sprint race week, and you're like, oh yeah, that was the good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't like the
one
idea of it.
I don't like the idea of it.
But you've liked 3 out of the 5.
So as a format, I didn't mind it. I think it's in the wrong order.
Oh, really?
I do think it's in the wrong order.
To hear that.
Yep. I think that there's still a lot of flaws in the actual way that we're going about this, which I'll talk about in a second. But in terms of the format, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that we had a little mini qualifier for the sprint. I like that, because it did what I really want it to do. I want the sprint to be standalone from the feature race. Mm-hmm. So if you're
which lots of people have come out and said.
Yeah. So if
that's okay.
Yeah, if you love the sprint, then if you want to, you can just watch sprint, which I think is okay. But I don't want it. Yeah, I mean, I love the main feature race like 99% of us do, so I want it to be separate to that. The flaws in it that I want to point out a couple of the flaws first. So the practice session and the rules surrounding the practice session. So we saw that I think it was Norris and Tsunoda were hampered by the rules when it came to actually qualifying for the sprint shootout. So you have practice 1, and then Parc Ferme comes in straight away. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't like that, because what that meant is, because they had to burn tyres in they had to use their tyres in the set format.
They made this choice.
They had already used them for the Sunday race. Yep. So that meant that straight away they couldn't participate fully in the sprint shootout
because they needed a new set unused.
Which I don't understand that why it must be new. So that really confused me. I couldn't see why I don't see the point in, if you're not allowed to run because you've got a used set, I'm not quite sure
it's a benefit.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not quite sure how you're advantaged or having any sort of benefit of running an older tyre. So none of that made sense to me. So I feel like, the Parc Ferme rules straight after Friday have to go, or you have to extend them as normal. So no need to fiddle with those. And if you don't have a new set, I don't understand why you can't run. So you've still got to be able to run. So I think that component totally has to go.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Yep. I tend to agree with you. There isn't a good reason not to be able to run an old set of mediums.
Absolutely
or an old
not.
set of softs. I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to make sure teams were giving it enough respect that they were going to use those new sets of tyres. They didn't want teams to look at it and snub their nose at it thinking, right, there's not many points on offer here. I'm not going to burn a new set of those tyres on it. Yep. And the reason I know exactly the reason why this was set in place.
Yep.
So they didn't want that happening, and then they didn't have time to get new tyres to the venue.
Yeah.
So what they think they're going to do in the future is actually bring those sets of tyres to the venue, so then they're ready to go.
Yep. Yep.
And so I think there's a little bit of tweaking. For me, the whole thing stunk because it was rushed at the end.
Oh, yeah.
It was like you had 3 weeks and you're nailing this with half a week to go before the race.
And it was Imola that was earmarked for this test, so I'm not quite sure why we decided just to throw it into Baku. So you're right.
That part stunk for me. I loved that we had a standalone Saturday.
Yep.
I loved that Friday was incredibly important.
Yeah.
I have some worries the fact that lots of Friday people miss because they're at work.
Oh, spot on. Yeah.
Which it works beautifully for us because we've knocked off work.
That's right.
The timing in Baku worked really nicely for us.
We could actually have tea and watch it, so that was good for us.
So it worked quite well for the rest of the world. So it's not doesn't just revolve around Europe, Formula One, in case people in Europe forget that sometimes. But yeah, I do have that concern though that you don't want to miss a qualifying because you're at work.
Yep.
That would suck being in that situation. And I wonder whether the Americans cop that all the time.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm interested to hear our feedback on that one because I hadn't actually considered people being at work while... Usually it's practice sections, actually.
Yeah.
I would have thought. Anyway,
get
back to us if that's something that happens to you. Yep. The other major change I would make is I quite liked the short, sharp sprint shootout.
Didn't mind it. Yep.
I would remove the energy recovery system from that session.
Yeah, okay.
So that drivers are going lap after lap for the laps. Whereas what we saw, they'd do a hard lap, then they'll do an off lap to recover the energy, and then they'll do a fast lap again. Then they'll recover the energy, do a fast lap. What I'd do is I'd remove that system, so then, and I don't know how easy that is to do, but I'd look at removing that system, so then just go lap after lap after lap, and it's a 7-minute shootout where you're doing every lap. Or I would love to see them change it into a 20 driver does one lap each.
Yeah, the single lap shootout, we're always been a big fan of that.
And that's something completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And on all of this, I don't want to see it every weekend.
No.
I'm loving the changes. I'm loving the trial. I don't feel like it made Sunday any less important.
No.
I feel like it might have diluted the race a little bit at Sunday this time around, but I don't think it made Sunday any less important. I still felt like Sunday was the Grand Prix weekend. Yeah. Saturday was completely different. Yep. So I'd love to see all those things stick in place. If we went to the one lap shootout, so everyone does a lap, I would and this is the big kicker. Sure. This is where we're getting a little bit gimmicky, but I want to see an interesting race for that shootout. I would let the team with the driver with the least points choose which position he does that lap.
Yeah, okay.
And so who's got the least points at the moment? Is it?
I think it's Albon. I think he has 1. No, someone has 0.
Yes. Let's say Logan Sargent's got no points and he's at the bottom of the tally.
Yep.
He chooses, so he might say, right, I'm going to go last.
Yep.
Then the next is, let's say it's Alex Albon. It's not. He's scored plenty of points. He gets to choose the next position. Last is out. Yep. He might choose to go third last.
Yep.
And so you work your way back to the champion getting the last choice. So Max might drive first.
Yep.
And that's where you see the mixed up grid. Max has still got that ability.
Yep.
The track isn't gearing up too much more.
Yep.
But I think we should see that. And I also think we should see that decision made only like just before the qualifying session happens.
Yeah.
So then you can take in the weather conditions. It might be there's rain on the way. I want to get my lap done first.
Yep.
And then that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
I'd like to see something quite different happen there.
Yeah.
They couldn't make the one lap shootout work because they didn't have the time to make it happen.
No, and I think we need to get close to making a call on whether or not. While I'm not a fan of sprints, I don't like the number of just having 6 of them.
Oh, really?
Just at random. I think I've got to that point now where the new format came in and it felt like it was just let's trial another thing to really, really try and manufacture the mixed up grid, which is starting to worry me a bit that we're trying to manufacture the incorrect running order for Sunday.
Yeah, there wasn't enough of that.
No, and see, this is the thing, and I was having a conversation with a friend about this just yesterday. So I felt like this new format was that it was we're trying to manufacture the incorrect order for Sunday. The reality at the moment is...
Wonderful, sounds good to me.
Yeah, the reality at the moment is, though, the order is set in terms of running outside of the odd driver, up or down in maybe 1 or 2 positions. So let me use Hulkenberg, for example, right? So the Haas is as fast as what the Haas is. It's not going to get much faster. If you go and try and do a few of these little gimmicky things that I feel like a few too many are starting to creep in now to the sport. If you go and say that Hülkenberg's allowed to throw on softs when everyone else is going to get hard tyres, right? Hülkenberg is not suddenly going to, in the Haas, out-qualify Max. Or he's not going to suddenly end up ahead of the Mercedes because that is just the absolute top speed that Haas got. That's the full capability of the Haas. So while it is great to try and get that mixed grid,
I'm with you.
I'm worried that we're trying to force something that, when you look at the order of the field, it's not going to happen.
I'm with you to a point. I still think we can put teams and drivers under pressure.
You can put teams and drivers under pressure,
and I want to see the drivers come through, and that's why I like the one lap dash, because you don't get a second go at it. Quite often we see Ferrari, like Sainz in particular.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see it from Leclerc or Perez. They don't get the lap done properly first time.
That's true.
Good. Like, let's put that pressure on.
And I'm okay with that. Things like the Parc Fermé,
because that's down to driver skill.
Yes, 100%.
That's
when
not
it's
gimmicky,
down to driver skill, that's okay. You muck it up. You didn't quite get it. That's okay.
Yep.
Little things like trying to force an unnatural grid, for a better word. The Parc Fermé rules have really, really put a chip on my shoulder, because I don't want to see, like, Sainz. I feel like Sainz got the setup wrong. I still want to see the best teams and the best drivers. I want to see them race with the correct setup.
Yep.
I don't want someone to turn up and go, damn it, we didn't get the setup right. But then it's a bit of bad luck. You're stuck with a crap car for the weekend.
It feels like the Parc Fermé was another victim of the fact that it was a rush, and that would have meant changing some more regulations for this weekend. So they had to make some changes to the regulations, get them signed off on.
Yep.
As soon as you start messing with Parc Fermé, it's starting to get really quite complicated.
Yep.
I feel like that was, after qualifying, all cars go on the Parc Fermé, and so that's the way we go.
Yeah.
And so that was another victim of the rush of this weekend, which didn't need to happen.
I think in terms of the order too, I'm happy with the practice session to start with on the Friday. No worries at all.
Yep.
Do the practice, but then just do your sprint qualify for the shootout. So try and get the sprint done in a day. If we want a fast, action-packed, high-intensity session, then do it in... I didn't mind it in the space of a couple of hours.
Yep.
Have your practice, get your setup. Okay, that's not too bad. We're pretty happy with where we are. We can make some changes because we know tomorrow morning we're going to qualify for the sprint. So you've got overnight to make your changes. Come out and do your shootout. Have a couple of hours break. You've got your car pretty much ready to go. Then do your sprint race.
So you're going 3 sessions on Friday.
So not even on Friday. I'm not quite sure where I'd sit in with the day. But what I'm saying is do your practice, do your sprint qualify, and then have your sprint race and get it done. And that's it. Then you're finished. You're finished with sprint. You don't have to worry about it anymore. People who love sprint, you might have fans out there that are just, I just love the sprint. I just want to bite a Formula One for the weekend. I'm not the type of fan that can sit for 72 laps. No worries. Your weekend's done. And so you like that. And then once we finish that, you come back the next day and you go, okay, now you can have another little mini practice session. Then you can do your proper qualify, ready for your full race on Sunday. Does that make sense? So we're splitting the weekend up. Get your sprint done and out the way. It's short, sharp, it's action-packed. Do it early on Friday.
That requires 3 sessions in one day.
But that's okay because they're short and sharp. Because you think the sprint was only 17 laps.
Yeah, but that's an hour's worth of racing.
But that's okay. I'm all right with that because get it done.
The teams aren't. No, I'm not down with that one.
Not down with that one.
Well, that's making Friday nearly the best day.
Yes,
and then you've just got a practice session. What's setting up for qualifying? What's the practice session for?
Well, I guess it would just be to give them an opportunity to make sure they got the setup right. Really, as I talked about. Like if you got your setup wrong, you don't want to have the weekend. So just gives you an opportunity to tweak, and it could just be 30 minutes.
Yeah, no,
and that's sort of it. I felt like I got to Saturday.
I'll tell you, I love Saturday being an enclosed day.
I love Saturday's quality day.
It was all focused on the sprint business.
Yep.
And it was packaged into that day.
Yep.
Signed, sealed, delivered. You beauty.
See, I really like that Saturday is quality day.
Yeah.
You excited for that? I know I'm getting up Saturday. I know we're qualifying and getting ready for Sunday.
No, look, all honesty, I didn't mind the format of Friday being your qualifying, and then we go and focus on the sprint. and then we go to the race.
Yeah,
and I'm with you. I would change the Parc Fermé rules.
I think so too.
I think that improves it.
I didn't like that I qualified for Sunday before I'd even done anything.
Yep.
So that for me was really disjointed and out of place too. So
Yep.
anyway, and I don't know about the tyre rule. I'm not sure. Again, I'm probably more.
Yeah, I think it's just I know what they were trying to avoid, and I know they had the restrictions of trying to get more tyres there.
Yeah.
So they were a little bit hamstrung again, but
they
sort of hamstrung themselves.
Well, that's sort of it, and I'm sort of left wondering why. Like, if everyone's on soft, is the order not going to be what the grid order is?
Yep.
So if anything, I guess they did the opposite of what they're trying to do.
Yep.
Like, you put Max on soft, and you put Fernando on soft. Well, I mean, obviously, Max is going to be faster.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, it was good. There was good bits that I liked, bits I didn't like. It needs a hell of a lot of work.
This is a hell of a lot. You've come a long way in sprint land.
It just needs a lot more work.
You were so closed off to it, even when you were enjoying the sprint races and weekends. You were still so closed off to it. This is the most open I've heard.
It probably is,
and it was the most boring of the lot.
I know the distance is still distance still concerns me too.
Yeah.
17 laps. You can't do a lot in 17 laps.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of work to do, but I didn't mind the format. I think the format is what sold it to me this weekend a little bit more. But again, there's a power of work to do, and I don't know.
Let's get into a little bit of that racing. So,
luckily nothing happened in the race.
The first sprint shootout was a Leclerc pole position, which was really
surprising.
It was surprising because we hadn't really seen that sort of form from the Ferraris. In fact, he qualified pole for both qualifying sessions, didn't he? And we hadn't really seen that sort of pace from them. We know he's quick. We know if there's a strength of his, it's certainly in qualifying. But yeah, he really pulled one out of the bag. And this was even before Ferrari's brought their upgrades.
Absolutely.
Ferrari upgrades are coming next weekend, or this weekend coming in Miami. So it's so it was a nice little pep in our step. I don't think anyone believed that he was going to have the pace to hold those Red Bulls back, particularly at this track.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while he did a really fantastic job in both races, I thought he actually he performed really well. It wasn't going to last forever, and it certainly didn't last forever. We saw Sergio Perez out-qualify Max in the sprint shootout. Max out-qualified Perez, and then that was about everything that we needed to talk about for there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sprint race. We saw Sergio Perez. Did he win that one?
Yep.
Yeah, he did too. Yeah, so we saw Sergio Perez. Jeez, it's been a busy weekend. So we saw Sergio Perez, have a really strong result there as well.
Yeah.
Over Leclerc, he got the job done. Max couldn't get the job done in the end, but we saw the Max and George incident, which was the big talking point, and that's why Max seems to think that he wasn't going to be able to get the job done, even though we saw in the race he couldn't actually chase down Perez either.
Yep.
Talk to me about, because this was probably for a weekend of very few big moments.
On a standard enjoyable weekend, I guess this is a non-event, isn't it?
This is the moment in the sprint race.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on the Max George start of the sprint race.
Just the actual incident itself. I think.
Talk me about.
I just think it was just a general racing incident, to be quite honest. I mean, Max was just incredibly unlucky that he lost an enormously large gaping hole in his side pod. But outside of that, I was okay with George's move. I was okay with Max hanging it out the outside because there's an enormous risk hanging it on the outside of those 45-degree right-handers in Baku. So Max was really, really taking a greater risk by staying there. But then the reward for that was that he was going to keep position really what would have only been for the straight, because you're going into another left-hander 45-degree angle. So he's going to be on the outside for that again, and then as they take the inside, heading up towards, I guess, the streets before they hit the castle, that's when he was going to get it back. So, honestly, racing instant for me. Mm-hmm. Like, really, as I said, I think it's become a talking point because the weekend was that bad.
No,
this is a talking
point. It
point.
only became a talking point because of the way that Max...
The interaction afterwards.
Behaved.
I was okay with that, though.
It was good drama.
Yeah.
Once again, we needed something on the weekend.
Absolutely, we did.
It was good drama. I didn't love the threat, but hey, we're all big boys. We all know that, like, I mean, Max, he made the threat, but everyone's like, oh, you can't be doing that. I mean, hot under the collar. He didn't go and charge into him on the race weekend, mind you. It wasn't like Russell was anywhere near him, but it was sort of an empty threat. We know it was an empty threat until he actually goes and charges into Russell. Then I'll start like pointing the finger at him, saying, "Hey,
absolutely,
what's going on here? This man needs to be penalised."
Yeah,
but yeah, it was fine. I mean,
I can guarantee.
And then people even got upset about Horner saying, "Oh, lucky George left his helmet on." I mean, that was a gag. It was a slightly insensitive gag. Like, sorry, not insensitive. It was a slightly inappropriate gag because we know that Max actually has a bit of history. His old man has a lot of history about hitting people, but I don't think anyone really believed it.
Absolutely
Max took some time to get over it. We want these guys to be aggressive racers. That's what Max gives us. Russell held his own. Let's celebrate the fact that the stewards didn't penalise someone and let everyone have a race. And then let's just let Max be Max and be a little bit over the top with it all. I mean, he was Suki Lala. Don't get me wrong, there was Suki Lala from him. Horner tried to stand up for him, but I don't think he really believed what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting little by-story from it all. Max has been really precious, but he's a racing driver. That's their job.
Yep. I can guarantee that if you walked the paddock for an entire day, you would hear 95% of conversations between rivals would be in the general ballpark of what Max and George's interaction was.
Yeah.
When we were in Australia, we watched the Redbull, I guess, head absolutely rocketed someone who didn't go and be part of the team photo with Max, and they're on the same team. We saw Yuki above, our pit area was absolutely losing it at the FIA. So I think this kind of stuff just happens normally. And for those people that are saying, and I have seen on social media, a few people going, "Oh, gee, isn't George hard done by?" Just take a minute to go back and remind yourself of how George interacted with Valtteri when we were at Imola, and they come off in the wet. Because he certainly didn't go up to Valtteri and shake his hand and be like, "Oh my God, are you okay?"
But George wasn't playing the victim.
Absolutely not.
He wasn't saying, "Oh, how dare he speak to me that way."
No,
George just said, "I thought he was coming to tell me about this.
Yep.
It's not what he told me. I thought it was a good racing."
Yeah, play on.
And play on.
Play on.
And Max was in the same boat after an hour. And that's what Christian actually said. He goes, "Look, after an hour he was fine, he was over it. It was okay."
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it was.
If you're offended by that, you're going to be offended by everything.
I mainly wanted to say congratulations to the stewards for getting that one right, allowing some racing on a pretty dull weekend.
Honestly, play on. Yep.
Yep. Anything else you want to add about any of those bits and pieces? We saw sort of probably one of the other major talking points is we saw the McLarens push forward in terms of speed.
Yep.
Norris obviously had. What did he end up doing? He ended up having also... what was his major issue?
Major issue?
Oh, no, he was on the softs, and so he actually went backwards, but he had the
out
speed.
Of position. Yep.
And we saw Oscar Piastri finish in 10th. I mean, we like talking about Aussies.
We do.
Oscar finished in 10th, which was a bright spark for a McLaren team.
Yep.
I mean, they picked up points in Australia last time out, but that was out of where they usually are.
Yep.
So it was nice to see them sort of find that form with the upgrades. And those upgrades obviously worked in some way for that part of it.
2/10 they think it's worth, and from the comments that we saw across the weekend, it looks like McLaren are sort of they're now where they should have been when they started the season.
Yeah,
so albeit it's 5 rounds behind, but Anyway, not going to get too excited about that. We're going to wait and see because
it feels like they're in the hunt now, whereas it didn't feel like they were in the hunt. I feel like at certain racetracks this year they're going to be competitive. At other racetracks, I think they're going to still be at the back of that midfield.
I probably feel like they've finally organised themselves. That's probably the extent of how I feel they're going.
Yep.
I'll give me another 5 weeks and I'll let you know how I think they're going. I think Oscar's doing a brilliant job. It was 0.32 tenths behind Lando in qualifying. I think it was like Q3 or something like that. So it was he's doing a great job and incredibly ill across the weekend. Incredibly ill.
Yeah,
he said he's had something like four slices of toast or something like that for the weekend.
Lost a couple of kilos.
Doing a great job. Really doing a great job. Taking it up to Lando too. Don't know that he's making him feel uncomfortable, but he's just sort of hey, I'm here. Like I'm right beside you. Like he's probably generally going to get beaten probably overall by Lando, but he's right there, and I think that's great. I think he's doing a good job.
What we generally see with Oscar too is he really works his way into learning the car.
Absolutely.
He never started. I mean, he only ever had one crack at each of the lead-up seasons.
Just fine. That's good.
But didn't come out firing in any of those seasons, but really came through the season and worked it up. So I think we'll sort of see more and more. And from all reports from McLaren, they couldn't be more happy with him. They think he's doing a good fantastic job.
Doing a good job.
Let's talk Perez, because Perez managed to get the double win.
Which shouldn't be a surprise because he is elite around Azerbaijan.
It shouldn't be a surprise, but still it is a little bit when it comes to beating Max Verstappen.
Yep.
It's a surprise because Max, I feel like Max is in a beautiful position at the moment. He's in a car that really suits him nicely.
Yep.
And he hasn't really got the competition around him apart from his teammate. And I know Perez is fantastic around street circuits, particularly this one.
Yep.
But I was really impressed with the fact that he could hold off Max.
Yeah, look, the strength of Checo's is his slow speed corner, entry and exit.
Yep.
And there was some information across the race weekend that showed the differences between where Checo was strong and where Max's strengths around the track were.
Yep.
The only areas that Max was strong was down the straights where he had the toe from Checo.
Yep.
So that's the only area. So Miami should suit Checo pretty well as well. The real true test for Perez is going to come on uncomfortable ground, where Max is very good at just going to a track and just winning. He'll work his way through it. His raw and natural skill and ability will get him the win. So Perez needs to turn up to somewhere like Austria and win in Austria. Or he needs to turn up somewhere like Zandvoort. He needs to win in Zandvoort. He needs to go to a track that he is not strong at. And he reminds me a little bit of Valtteri in his sort of last few years at Mercedes, where Valtteri had tracks that were his tracks. You know, Sochi was prime example of Valtteri's. It was his. He
Australia.
owned it. Australia as well. So that's where Checo's true test is going to lie this season. Can he do that at Silverstone?
It appears this car suits him better than what the last ones have.
Yes.
Feels like they've made a bit more of a broader driving car this time round, and that probably just speaks to the strength of the car in general.
I think Max's confidence is through the roof, and I've never seen him so confident. And the reason I say that is watching him after the race weekend.
Chilled.
Qualify second, third, finish second. The general feeling was, it's all right. No stress.
I'm fairly chilled. I don't like being second, but I'm chilled
like
about
being
it. It's
second,
going to be okay.
But I know that that tells me that his confidence is so supreme that he can look at that and go, yeah, you're right. He'll be fuming that he's second. But he'll look ahead to the next 5 races. We've got 5 and 6. And he'll go, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. I didn't win this weekend. Don't worry about it.
I'll be surprised.
I'll lead it in a month.
I'll be surprised if he's not 30 points ahead in 5 races.
Oh, absolutely too. Yep. Look, Checo's got to beat him at Miami this weekend, and he'll actually lead the championship. Whether or not that happens, I mean, it's a high chance because, as I said, the slow speed corners will suit Perez really, really well. So, anyway, you never know.
Charles, I mean, Ferrari, we talked about it briefly, but they seem to be back in a way. The big updates are coming at Miami, and they're really quite confident about what's going to be coming. I mean, we've heard that quite a lot, but it's a good sign coming into updates that they seem to have a bit of an understanding of where it's at. Obviously, the track suited them. It's a unique place.
High speed.
But
should do well in Monza. I think the track sort of works.
It's nice to see Leclerc put up a good performance, particularly when there's been a little bit of contract talk that he denied with talking with Mercedes.
A really strong tap on the chest of the Ferrari sort of.
But he also said not yet, which is a little bit of a warning shot across the bow of Ferrari saying, hey, you've got to have to get this together because I am a good talent and I'm on the move if you can't get it together. And so, I thought it was a really interesting comment.
There is nothing more meaningless in this world than a Formula One contract.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
Yep, absolutely. So it'll be, it was a good result from him that he needed. We hadn't seen for quite a while. So he certainly needed to see that. Fernando Alonso had a really stellar race in terms of stellar. He made a couple of overtaking moves.
Absolutely.
They were cool
overtake moves. Down, I think it was turn 6 or something like that. Ridiculous.
They were cool. They were cool moves, but that was about it. I mean, there was general good pace around that car. Still mixing it with the likes of beating the Mercedes. He's beating the other Ferrari. And his pace was quite decent. So it wasn't quite Red Bull pace, but it was pretty close to everybody else. So
how was the teamwork across the radio.
Sickening is how it was.
Incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
I nearly spewed in me hat.
It was a man that is, A, either fully invested in getting this team to the front of the grid, or B, he's got a couple of years and he is going, I am dead set wanting 2 more years with this team. So I'm going to do all this incredible stuff and I'm going to share information with Stroll.
How does this make you feel? How do you sleep at night?
I'm all right with it because I've never been a subscriber. I've never been a subscriber of the stories that Alonso is just aggressive and full on and pulls teams apart. I've never subscribed to that.
All the other teams,
I've never subscribed to that. I have never subscribed to that. I know a lot of people have, and they think, no, he comes in, he ruins teams, he pulls them apart. I'm not buying into that. But I think I heard it for the first time.
He did.
There's a gun somewhere.
He's a different man
now.
There's
a gun somewhere in a back room pointing at him and say something nice about Lance. I can guarantee it. But I think he's a smart, really, really wily individual. He knows he's got 2 years. This car is capable of lots of great things. And I think what he's doing is he is broadcasting this stuff because it is a great look for him and the team. And the team are going, we love what you're doing. You're fully invested. You're doing this kind of stuff by saying, hey, tell Lance to do this with the brake bias. Mind you, he gave him brake bias adjustments as he was locking up and going off track. So probably a lap too late.
No, it's because we get the messages late and then Stroll tries it and it didn't work for him.
Not great timing for the way it was broadcast. But I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen 2 drivers just even Lance. I'm not going to attack Fernando. Don't worry about it. I'm going to sit behind him. It is a full team game at Aston Martin, and I don't mind it. But
would you say Lance is the anti-hero?
So the villain.
Would you say there's a blank space baby going on here?
I don't know.
Should he just shake it off? What is the story going on with Taylor Swift?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be quite honest.
Did you get any of those references to Taylor Swift?
I got all your references because I heard them all across the weekend from Crofty. I'm not really sure. I missed the Instagram story that apparently went up of Fernando and then winking at the camera, and then there was Taylor Swift music across the Instagram story. I missed all of that.
He seems to be encouraging it, which I find really funny.
But then I feel like he's the type of bloke that would be like, hey, this is great, you're telling me that I'm dating Taylor Swift, so I'm just going to roll with it.
Yeah. And like, it wouldn't surprise me if he sent Taylor a message and saying, hey, can we have some fun with this
kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I saw a really great meme. I can't remember who it was from, but there was photos of Lewis watching his brother Nicholas in the touring cars. Yep. He was just standing in the field in jackets, but then someone had sort of photoshopped that into Taylor Swift's Twitter, and it was her in the jacket, like watching Fernando go around Baku, which I thought was quite good. I really like that. Yeah, I don't know. You're right in saying Fernando's a new man. He's almost taken on Seb's role, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Seb went to Aston, it was chilled. I'm becoming the mentor. I'm the team player.
We saw this Alonso at Alpine as well.
We kind of did. We saw glimpses of it.
The post being ousted from Formula One, Fernando was a different man.
Yep.
And he's learned his lessons. But I'm absolutely sure he was a nightmare to have in a team.
Yeah. Don't know.
Back in the day,
maybe.
But so was Lewis at the same time, and I mean the only driver
at some stage.
Yeah, the only driver I know that used to love Fernando was Stoffel Van Dorn.
Absolutely,
and that was his undoing, wasn't it? Because he absolutely undid him. But it was. Yeah, so no, it's nice to see, but it was sickening to hear all those radio messages, and I can only think of you, and I'm hoping that you were having all these mixed messages about, do I leave Fernando because he's being so gross about this?
Absolutely not. I love the team game though. Gee, they're a team. You can see the real unity at Aston Martin.
Did you see the TED interview with Stroll?
I did.
What do you think?
Oh, it went for about 5 seconds, to be quite honest, after I watched it. I was like, is that it?
There was more on YouTube. Did you go to YouTube to watch the rest? No, neither did I. Did you get intrigued enough?
Not at all.
Yeah.
From what I could give you a snapshot of that, Ted flew halfway across the world to some random place, watched Lance snow ski, went and sat down in his backyard. Skied with him. Asked him 2 questions and went home. And that was the extent of it. I was like, okay.
So it turns out the interesting stuff was there, and the stuff that's on YouTube obviously isn't interesting enough to make it to the TV.
That didn't go,
Who would have thought that Lance was that interesting?
Oh, dear.
Science.
Tell
me about Carlos Sainz at the moment.
He's just nowhere, isn't he?
Is his seat in a bit of trouble?
No.
I like to do this. You know I like to do
you
this.
do.
it's part of what we do here.
I know it is.
Is his seat at all in trouble?
No.
Why?
Because it's just not.
Is he performing?
He is performing, but he's just sort of nowhere at the moment. That Ferrari's nowhere, which is helping him too.
Yeah. I love Carlos Sainz. I'm a big supporter of him. I know one of my good friends is not. He doesn't rate him at all, but I really do. But yeah, I'm getting a real nothing vibe from him at the moment, and I'm feeling like Ferrari are the sort of team that might go and chop him if he doesn't start pushing on a little bit.
Sainz fills the role like Massa did. He fills the role like Rubens Barrichello did.
Maybe
he's a very good driver in a very good team, but his teammate is a star.
I wonder if that could be the problem. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton.
Drove a really great weekend.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, should absolutely outperform that car. Shouldn't have been fifth. Did a really good job. And his actual racecraft as well was quite good throughout the race. Got burnt by the safety car massively, but worked his way back through. So, actually a really solid, a real workman-like weekend from Lewis.
Okay. I don't mind that call for his race weekend. Lance Stroll was pretty good, coached all the way through. It was nice
by the great
nice to be on your L plates, isn't it, in Formula 1? And Russell, he had the interesting sprint race. To his credit, I know Max ended up overtaking him and he finished fourth, but I thought he drove a pretty good race in that sprint race. But yeah, couldn't quite get it together for the major race. Lando Norris finishing ninth, picked up another couple of points for McLaren, with Oscar Piastri finishing in 11th. And we talked about Oscar. Oscar got a little bit of contact on the first corner, and I don't know if it affected his driving too much, but obviously didn't have a huge amount of pace, couldn't quite run down the boys in front of him, Yuki Tsunoda and Norris, and that whole train was held up by Hülkenberg, and who was the other one that was with Hülkenberg holding everyone up? Was it Ocon? I think?
It was. Yep.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a compromised race for them in the end, but yeah, they weren't really that far behind in the end anyway. Albon, Williams certainly made gains.
Yes, they have as a team in general.
Real gains.
Yep.
This track was never going to help them at all. It was a sort of track that wasn't going to help them. But I thought, Albon sort of drove a bit of a quiet nothing race, and that's pretty much what we can say about the rest of the field. Tell me, how do you think our rookies are going? It was something if we were going to do the F1.5 launch, it was going to be part of that discussion. I want to hear from you. How are the rookies going? Oscar Piastri, we know you think he's going really well.
Yep.
I think he's going really well. I think he could be going better, to be honest with you. I think there's... But I know that's building. I'm not putting pressure on him.
I think we talked about that at the start of the season.
I think it's a build for Piastri. I'm not concerned by any stretch of the imagination. There's certainly areas that he could be going a little bit better, a little bit quicker in certain parts. Nick de Vries, not quite a rookie. How's his season going?
I would have to say that across the first 5 weekends, it would be the worst start to a season that I have ever seen from a driver.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting Mazepin.
He is having an absolute nightmare.
I think you're forgetting Mazepin.
He is having an absolute nightmare of life.
It's not
absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. For a man that is coming off a Formula E championship that did a few stints last year in some lesser teams and really, really outperformed the car. My goodness me, he's in the wrong team at the right time. I don't think the team's helping him. I don't think the car's helping him.
It's not all him.
It's not.
It's not like he's making. It's not like he's making silly mistakes.
No.
It's just that the team is a bit nowhere at the moment.
If you were to list the teams on the grid that you don't want to seat in, my goodness me, I think AlphaTauri would be the number one for that.
He's doing a pretty good job this year.
Yuki's had a year there though, and if his teammates
a year,
he's already
had
a season.
Plenty of years.
Yeah,
he's had the season around Yuki.
I think he's had 1 or 2. Isn't it 2, me? 2?
2.
We'll double check that. I reckon 2. Yuki's doing an okay job, but I tell you, honestly, if a seat opened up in any of the teams, and a seat opened up in AlphaTauri, you'd look at it and go, actually, right now, no thanks.
Well, the one thing I was expecting from him is I was expecting consistency. Yep. Because he's got that experience, and we're not even necessarily seeing that at the moment. But it is hard to say whether that's because Nick isn't performing, or if it's because AlphaTauri are just such a
I worry
weird
if there's
space.
even any support there for him, because if Franz is throwing his technical directors and engineers under the bus, you got Yuki who's constantly losing it when it doesn't go his way, and you got poor Nick that's coming to this team who's probably looking around going, who's actually giving me a hand here?
Yep.
Because the car's rubbish, team boss is on the way out, and your teammate certainly isn't going to take you under the wing in Yuki. I couldn't see Yuki wrapping his arms around anyone and go, come with me, let's drag this team. Yep. So I feel for him, because I don't think he's got any support there, and he's in a garbage team right now. He really, really is.
Logan Sargent.
Logan Sargent is doing an incredibly good job.
Really?
Incredibly good job. To be quite honest, I think Sargent's doing a better job than Oscar right now at this point. He's raced so well. His craft is there. He's matching Albon.
No, he's not.
He's thereabouts with matching Albon. I wouldn't say that Albon's wiping the floor with him. But I think he's as close to Albon as what Oscar is to Lando. Oscar obviously looks like he's learning a lot, but in terms of watching Logan Sargent across a race weekend, I feel like he's the type of driver that just gets in and gets on with it. Yeah, I haven't seen Logan take some time to warm into a weekend and to learn a weekend. I feel like that's what Oscar does. He takes the time to observe, learn, take notes, and then attack, where Logan just gets in and goes like, right, let's go for it. And I don't mind that. I think he's doing an incredibly good job. For me, he's the pick of the rookies right now.
I think he's going well. I think he's certainly going well. But, I mean, I think we underestimate how strong Albon is. I think Albon is quite a quality driver.
And that's what makes me think Sargent's doing as good a job as what he is.
I also don't think he's quite as good as Norris. And I think Norris is a hell of a lot better driver than what Albon is.
The McLaren is slightly better than the Williams.
Yeah, but there's a bigger gap between Albon and Sargent. But yeah, so yes, Logan Sargent's going okay. What I'm looking forward to, and this is moving forward into next week, next part of the episode, but I'm really looking forward to seeing Logan Sargent in America. And he's a local boy in Miami, a Florida boy apparently. Yes. And so I want to see a bit of fanfare for the boy. Like, this is what we're going to America for. We're going to America for 3 races for now, and so we can see Formula One build in America.
Yes.
I want to see a bit of fanfare for him. I mean, we're making all this effort to build American audiences, which is working beautifully, and I'm liking what they're doing, but I want to see people getting behind him. And so I know it's hard sometimes when you don't want to load up too much pressure on a backmarker and someone who's just building their way into their career. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him in Miami and seeing how
I think so too.
How they can get around him.
Speaking of Miami, I'm furiously scrolling through the Red Bull Instagram page right now, because I feel like at any moment we are going to get the new livery, because they've just dropped us 4 examples of runner-up liveries, and they don't look too bad.
Yeah,
and
you seem to think that they're going to run a change livery at Miami.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a show livery. I hope it's not.
I think, and we looked at it. It looks like it's just going to be the side pods. That's all it's going to be.
I hope so.
Flat face to side. But anyway, I'm keeping an eye on it because there's a lot of teasers going on right now. I feel like it's pretty close.
The ones that didn't win were cool, weren't they?
They look fantastic.
I like the bowl one.
So I'll tell you what, the winner would want to be elite.
Let's go to All Signs Driver of the Year. That's awesome. The 3, 2, and 1.
3, 2, and 1. I am just going to honestly give it this weekend. As horrid as what Baku was, I'm just going to give it to the top 3 this weekend. In order.
It feels like you're not really giving much effort to this.
I am giving effort to it. It was a horrid weekend. It was horrid. That's why I gave it a 4. Checo 3, Max 2, Charles 1. That's it. That's it.
You're not even trying anymore.
It's what the weekend deserves.
You're not even trying anymore. What happened to we don't give the full points to the fastest cars?
Well, considering absolutely nothing else happened across the race weekend, I've got no one else to give it to. I'm giving it exactly what the weekend deserves. I gave it a 4. This is what I'm giving it.
I'm just having to make sure we haven't given points to any of those drivers yet this year.
Incredible.
For me, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is a more considered race ranking. Leclerc can have 3 points for me because he managed to qualify really, really well, and I thought he raced really well.
Yep.
I thought he did a great job. I'm going to give 2 points to Alonso because I really liked that move, and for a race that didn't have a lot of moves, I thought it was a really fantastic move, and to be driving that well while coaching another driver, through his life. Thought that was really impressive.
Through his life.
Yep. And I'm going to give a point to Yuki. We've given 1 point to Yuki already, but when you look at where that other AlphaTauri is and where that team is, to finish with the last point, I thought it was a fairly decent effort. So, 1 point's going to go to Yuki.
Great work.
Yeah, much more considered, those ones, weren't they?
Much more considered.
Did you see how I put in some effort to those numbers?
I did. What a shame Formula 1 didn't put in effort this weekend.
I'm looking forward to hearing what our listeners have to say about it too. Dud of the day.
Dud of the day. I'm not going to go with the obvious dud of the day.
Which is?
Because
I won't go with it either.
Which is just Formula 1 in general and people being out in the pit lane.
Oh, okay. I thought that was going to be it.
That's the obvious dud of the day.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because we haven't given it a year.
Sure.
So if you've missed it, and I understand there are people that haven't watched the race and listened to our podcast because we've got such beautiful voices and we just calm you.
Don't we?
Something like that. Quite a few people tell me that they listen to this to go to sleep, and I worry.
That worries me. That our content puts you to sleep.
Yeah, but so as Ocon was making a very late compulsory pit stop,
ridiculously late pit stop. Can I also highlight that? Like literally the last lap.
Yeah, even if that red flag came out when he needed it to come out, he still wasn't going to. He might have finished with a point. With a red flag situation.
He could have pitted 4 laps earlier and he still would have come home exactly where he was.
Yeah.
Stupidly late.
Yeah, they were hoping for the red flag, so then he got the free pit stop, was what he was hoping for. But anyway.
If you're hoping for a red flag on literally the last lap of the most boring race weekend in the world, you're not quite on it, are you?
Well,
you're not quite on it.
It's nearly happened.
You're kind of going...
It's happened a couple of times.
Yeah,
it's Baku. Yeah. Remember when Max blew a tyre for no reason?
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun. Yeah, so just...
he's making... Sorry, I didn't finish explaining it. So he's making that late pit stop, and then... And it's funny, because at the time, Ted on the Sky Sports thing is saying...
There's people in
the pit lane.
It.
They're crossing to the pit wall to celebrate the wins. Now there's photographers out the pit lane. Yep. Do they know that Ocon needs to make his pit stop? And Ocon in he comes. And they are the photographers who are up the end of where the podium is, are across the pit lane. It's not like they're just sort of, there's a few standing in the pit area. They are across the lane. And it was a little bit too close for comfort.
Yeah, I think it was stupid. It certainly put Australia to shame, though. But we saw that in Australia, too. We saw VIPs walking out into the pit lane, out of the garages in the middle of a live race. I tell you what's going to come of this. Nothing. And the reason that nothing is going to come of it, because the FIA set the rules, and the FIA stuff the rules, and the FIA investigate the rules. So it's going to be another case of mark your own homework, and we're probably not going to hear anything else from this, to be quite honest.
Think about it, though. How do we get to pit lane? When we're in Melbourne, how do we get to pit lane?
Security.
We go through security.
Yep.
Now, when there's a bunch of people moving in a certain area with people that look like they know what they're doing, security sort of, like, they know they're not supposed to do certain things at certain times. But, it's I'm not entirely sure it wasn't just a marshal doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Of course not.
It was the entire pit lane walking out while the race was still active. Yeah. But even without the pit stop, the race was still going.
No, I understand that. But, I'm not sure it's... FIA, I think they need to we might see some tightening up of who's in charge of the pit area and who's on the gates and that sort of thing. It was an interesting one.
I don't think we're gonna. I wouldn't hold your breath for a press release or the FIA coming out and saying this is what we're doing, because, as I said, it's a case of marking your own homework. It's going to be and then move on.
Who's your dad then?
My dad of the day goes to all of the journalists who were in the presser at the end of the race and did not direct a single question to Charles while he was sitting in the presser. So there's a video out, and it's on social media, of all of the journalists asking questions, and Charles sitting there and eventually just putting his microphone down and rolling his eyes, because not one single question was asked of Charles in the post-race presser.
Interesting.
Not one single question.
Yeah.
Not one.
I mean, sitting in those press conferences, you'd probably get one, but, I mean...
None. Literally none.
But Tom Clarkson would have asked him a question, because he goes... He goes through...
He would have, but all the other journalists, every other journalist, not a single question.
I'm not entirely sure that would be...
I call that
might get one.
Because there will be articles written about Charles from people who didn't ask him a single question. I just think that's poor. You've got 3 people up there, and Charles's result was a really good result for him and Ferrari, and just to totally give him nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's poor.
See, what I'm getting at is Tom might have asked the questions that they needed. So Tom is really good at getting some good information out, and I think he gets the information out because sometimes the questions aren't the greatest. We've seen that sometimes that's the case. The questions aren't the greatest. But what he actually does do while he's doing that, you think, oh, I've got a question here, and then Tom will get that nailed. And then you think, oh, I wouldn't mind seeing what comes of this, and someone will ask a question, and Tom will further that question for you. And so, I think that's a misdirected dud.
I'm happy with it.
I think the duds are... Yeah, I think there's better ones out there.
Mine's
going to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis went, you mentioned earlier, he went to a racetrack to watch his brother.
Yeah, I think it was Donington Park.
Yeah. You know what he did?
What did he do?
Posted a picture of himself.
Yep.
Standing there. It was good to be like the normal people watching a race, the normal fans watching a race.
Yep.
The normal fans, why do you need to use that language? The normal fans. It was just good to be a fan at the race, watching my brother. He did a fantastic job. You know what else happened?
What else happened?
It's pretty difficult to get that photo without someone taking that photo for you to set it up to show that you're...
There were a couple of photos.
You're very, very supportive of your brother. So you've taken somebody with you. Hey, can you go and get a photo of me watching...
Might have gone with a friend.
All by myself. Can you get a photo of me watching all by myself? Because I'm a normal guy, watching in my normal jacket, not team gear, at Donington, because that's what normal race fans do.
It's what normal race fans do.
Give me a break.
It's horrid.
No, give me a break, Lewis. You don't need to use that language. Just turn up and watch. You don't have to get the photo. You don't have to get someone getting a photo of you standing by yourself in your cold jacket.
Oh, that was good.
Come on, you precious prick.
That's good.
What a precious prick.
Yowzers.
Oh, boy.
Yowzers.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my goodness, mate.
Let's get to fantasy.
It took a real turn, didn't it?
Yep.
I'm excited for fantasy this week. How did you go with fantasy this week?
Haven't checked it. I'm about to look.
Good. Don't check.
Okay.
66 teams. Thank you to everyone who has been part of fantasy again this year. Let's start bottom to top and build a little bit of suspense. Yeah, sprint race weekend. Did you use your triple points?
Nah.
No.
I'm going to do it in Austin.
Silly. In Austin.
No, Austria.
In Austria. All right, let's start with yours first, yeah? As I find you, as I scroll down and I scroll down.
I actually did consider it.
And
I wasn't willing to pull the trigger.
And then what happened?
No, I wasn't willing to pull the trigger because I wasn't sure how this new format was going to play out.
All right, so...
And I'm pleased I didn't, because I would have put it on Max, and Max didn't get the 4 points.
Max did all right, though. So you are 28th position on 1,194. Now, you are tied with Vortex Motorsport. So you've got, a right there rival with you. So you had a total of 344 points, which is quite good. 74 for Max, 61 for Checo, 27 for Fernando, 17 for Gasly, 2 to Hulk, 55 for Aston, and 108 for Red Bull. So that's quite good. You've done a really good job there.
Thanks.
Lots more points are on offer, though. So you can see generally with absolutely no action there, you've got nearly 340.
I know.
So anyway, not too bad. You got a direct. I like that you've got a direct rival, though. Literally right there with you. Jay in 32nd position, didn't really move, 1,181. And if we have a look at how Jay sort of organised his weekend, same again, Max, Gasly, Alonso, Perez, Hulk, and the Red Bull and the Aston. Gasly having his probably best weekend points-wise, to be quite honest. And then we go all the way to the top. And, if you're scrolling, keep going. Because I'm third.
Did you use
And I used my triple points, which I'm absolutely wrapped with. So I did choose Max, which I'm okay with, even though Checo came home with the goods.
Max only scored 37 points.
That's not too bad, though. I'm quite happy with that.
Usually. I don't want to rain on your parade here.
I don't know that I was confident enough on Friday to roll the dice with Checo. That was the only thing.
I think you've made a mistake.
Joe's DNF burnt me hugely. Because a DNF is minus 20, and he DNF. So I lost points with Joe, so that's the thing. So there was a lot more on the table for me, but I'm happy with what I got. So I banked 431 points for the weekend, 111 for Max, 122 for Checo, 27 for Fernando.
Hang on, how did you get something for Checo?
Because you can double. So I doubled Checo's, and I tripled Max's.
So hang on, you use a double and...
So use a double and a triple.
We've got a double and a triple this year.
Well, you get the 2-time driver regardless of when you use your chip.
Oh,
so
okay. Because that's the standard one that you always get?
Yep. So across the 5 drivers, I did double across Perez and triple across Max, which is all right. As I said, I wasn't confident enough on Friday that I was going to bank it on Max. Zhou hurt me because I lost -20 with Zhou because he DNF'd. But 431 points, and I'm sitting 3rd in the championship so far, so I'm very happy with that.
Really?
Had Zhou not have DNF'd, I would be leading fantasy this week.
That's quite...
Which is great. So let's go through the top 5. Speedy Team 1. This is how close it is. Speedy Team 1 is 1,368 points. In second place, Nando for the World Drivers' Championship, 1,361 points. There's only 7. Me sitting in third on 1,356 points. WW Jolien PD is literally a point behind me, 1,355, and in fifth, about 20-odd points back, Redbull Catering Fund with 1,331.
Can you see which of those people have used their...
No, I don't think you can go in and see what chips have been used, but certainly while they're racing, you can actually see, when chips have been allocated. So I saw quite a few people jumped on with the no negatives this weekend, which at a place like Baku makes total sense. So anyway, that's where we're looking. But thank you to Chris at Dr. Auto Art for all of your incredible work with fantasy and your artworks and all that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit more excited now because I could win. I could get third. Well, do I get a prize?
You've told me all along that we're not allowed to. No.
Okay. I'm flat.
I think you've made a mistake.
Why have I made a mistake?
Because Max only scored 37 points. That's not a lot of points for a triple weekend. You've burnt your triple. You've burnt your Mega Driver far too early.
No.
It's a shame, but no, I think you've made a mistake. It's going to be critical. I mean, you've gone early. You just got excited and you've gone far too early.
I'll take your feedback when you move from 28.
Yeah, I don't think I will.
Anyway, thanks to Chris. Chris at Dr. Auto Art. Check out all his great work, Instagram, Facebook, Redbubble, all his terrific artworks as well. We'll post a couple more up right now, I think. In fact, I might do it right now while we talk about it. We have Chris, a huge pump up. I'm going to jump on Facebook. I'm going to post some artwork up right now.
I wanted to see, and I haven't actually seen it yet. Yep. Chris got sent another helmet. And then I was promised to see it. I don't think I've actually seen it on the socials yet. So, yeah, but Chris is now, if you weren't sure, Chris is now doing helmets.
Awesome.
And the first 2 I saw was unbelievable.
Yeah, so, he's got a really great artwork of Ayrton Senna up this week as well. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to put that right up for Chris right now. So if you're listening to us right now, jump on our Facebook page. I'm going to throw an amazing shot of some of Chris's great artwork. But thank you, Chris, for once again being a terrific sponsor of Fantasy.
Fantastic.
Once again this year.
News. Got anything?
I think we covered news quite early in the podcast, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So I was trying to cover between Australia and this race, what had been through. There hasn't been a huge amount come through since then, other than the fact that we've got teams bringing more updates, and Ferrari's probably the main one where they're going to see an upgrade push come at Miami. But yeah, It'll be interesting. Thoughts on, there was a bit of discussion around the shortened DRS for Azerbaijan. Do you think
100 metres made absolutely no difference?
Well, it did. It made it possibly made a difference because we didn't see very much overtaking. So which was the part that they were asking, was the 100 metres off? Did that mean that they weren't being able to overtake? Because we saw huge long lines of DRS trains. Should they have left the 100 metres there?
Yeah.
Okay, so it did make a difference.
No, not really. I mean, you could have left it. You could have not left it. 100 metres didn't really impact the race too much.
Alonso is stating that he is helping Stroll because Stroll is set to lead the team for the next 15 years. We've got 15 more years of Stroll in
bloody hell
in Formula One.
Yikes!
That's a fun thought, isn't it, for for everybody? Next race is Miami.
Amazing. Updates from Miami. Real water in the Marina Bay. So real water will be there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Are you serious?
So there will be real water. And it'll be in there. It's been installed. It's ready to go. So I'm excited to see an actual photo of that. Haven't seen a photo yet, but there's a real water in the Marina Bay, which was really was a giant sticker and kind of painted on last time, wasn't it?
And wasn't there a fake boat?
Yep, fake boat. So I don't know that the boats are there anymore, but the water is now real. And I think it's supposed to be like a seating area and stuff like that. Pumped for that. I'm really excited to see the helmet liveries because I know in Miami we get something a little bit extra from the drivers. I'm super keen to see what they look like. I am that excited to see this Red Bull livery. I think it's going to look unbelievably good. I would expect, like most of you that have seen, we're going to see the top and the bodywork is going to be the dark blue. All the Oracle and the Red Bull stuff is going to be there. Sponsors are going to be normal, and it looks like just literally the flat side of the side pod, flat side of the nose, front end plate, and the rear end plate. So that's where the actual graphics is going to be. But if you have had the opportunity, if you're listening now and you haven't, jump on. Hopefully they don't release it by the time you actually get a chance to listen to us. But have a look at the sort of the fan graphics as well. And I've seen that they've actually put a little bit of an art gallery at the back of Miami this year where the top 100 fan-created graphics for the car are on display. So you can go and have a look at those.
Are you looking forward to the Miami race? I
am actually, to be quite honest, because being it was brand new last year, learning the track and how it works and all that kind of stuff helped me. I think now that I know the track, I've even been able to go on the simulator on it. I understand, where to race, what the racing line's going to be, I have a general better understanding of the track, so I think I'm going to enjoy it more.
Typically, we see the second time at venues like this. Yep. We do see teams getting better at racing there as well, and I think, I'm really looking forward to seeing it the second time around. It wasn't the most exciting race last year. I understand it's probably quite fun to drive, but it wasn't the most exciting race last year. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to a second time out because you've got to give these places a couple of goes.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to that. It's a 5:30 a.m. race start.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
It's getting a little bit tight for us getting to work though. If we get a red flag, it's getting a little tight. So yeah, if my boss is listening, maybe I might recall it in sick too. A 6 a.m. qualifying, which is I'm all for, and the practice sessions are pretty hopeless for us. But practice 2 is at 7:30 a.m., which is fantastic.
That's really good.
So yeah, what are you expecting to see? You're seeing a Perez win, are you? You've already predicted it.
Yeah, maybe I will see a Checo win, actually. Yeah, maybe.
Good for the championship.
I think it'll be good for the championship. I think it's going to bode well. And I'll tell you what, I think the Astons will be back up at the pointy end. They had a little bit of a rougher weekend this weekend. High speed isn't their strength, so I kind of expect that Monza's not going to be, sort of their cup of tea either. I don't think the DRS is going to have a huge impact around Miami for Red Bull, so they're probably going to be disadvantaged with that. So I reckon, you could see Fernando throwing it in there for maybe a sneaky pole if he gets it all collected up together really, really well, and maybe probably sneak in for second.
Yep.
We're still waiting on win 33, so I think it's thereabouts, but Miami could throw up anything.
Maybe.
And I reckon if he gets it right, he could be on it. So I kind of predict a Checo win, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Alonso split the Red Bulls.
I'll be watching all those teams that have brought updates, because this is a completely different scenario than what we saw at Baku. So I'm looking forward to seeing all those teams that have brought updates and seeing how the second race weekend and a different track is going to go and play. And hopefully we're going to see a bit of a tighter grid up the front. I mean, the rest of the grid is behaving very nicely in the way that they're racing. We just got to bring Red Bull back into the pack. For me, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen a Max Verstappen this year that I don't think is going to win everything going around. So I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised, but it's good for racing to see someone take it to him last weekend. So yeah, I'm hoping to see that again. But yeah, I just want to see some continued improvements from the likes of McLaren. I want to see that midfield battle sort of continue to play itself out. Absolutely. And hopefully Ferrari can nail it. I mean, just because you bring upgrades doesn't mean you nail it first time out.
That's
so
very
it takes
true.
a bit of learning. Usually it's a couple of races into it. So
that's very true.
Yeah, that'll be the things I'll be looking for there. But yeah, keep a listen out for Fan Frenzy.
Fan Frenzy coming up shortly.
Yep, well, in the next couple of days, because while we record it now, they don't get it now. But yeah, so Fan Frenzy coming out in the next couple of days, and we look forward to getting back into it. I tell you what, it's a long time waiting for a Formula One race sometimes, and then all of a sudden they start pouring down on you, and you can't wait, and you can't get enough of them. So we're in that point where we're in the thick of the action and looking forward to seeing more and more. We've got a couple of double headers coming up. The next one, we got a week off after this one, but then we go to Italy and then Monaco.
Awesome.
Italy and Monaco, how good is this?
Italy, I'm pumped for.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So, yeah, we've got all sorts going on, and we're back in the thick of the action of the Formula One season after just a little bit of a jump start, but we're into it now. We look forward to talking to you more about Formula One coming up. Goodbye now.